You ever make a D&D villain, give them lore, a cool voice, a dramatic entrance, and maybe even a tragic backstory, and then your players kill them in 12 seconds and immediately start asking if the sword is magical? Yeah, me too. And this system exists because I got tired of enemies feeling disposable and forgettable. Now, this is the fourth video I've made about putting the Nemesis system in D&D. The first video explained the idea. The second video went deeper into allies, war mechanics, spies, and the Shadow of War side of things. The third was what I learned after running this system for over a year. And this video, the fourth, is the actual implementation guide. I made a document, I organized the rules, I wrote down the version I would actually tell another DM to use if they want to steal this for their game. And today, I'm going to walk you through the important parts so you can steal it too. But what is the Nemesis system, or in my case, the Rising Rivals and Ascending Allies system? And how the hell could you implement it in D&D? Well, let's start with the beginning in Shadow of Mordor. Here, the Nemesis system, y'all, it was so freaking cool because enemies didn't just die and disappear, they came back to life and they remembered you. They came back with scars from the previous battle. They climbed ranks if they ever killed you, and they adapted to how you fought them. A random grunt could survive one fight or even get resurrected and come back not as Orc number 476, but instead Gothrak, the arsonist, because you killed him with a flaming arrow. And suddenly, this guy became one of the most personal villains in your entire game. So I took that idea and rebuilt it for D&D. But the big twist is this. In my version, enemies don't just level up. I figured out how to use this and get my players more engaged in my games than ever. And my system is arguably better than the Nemesis system because my Nemesis can do this. They can steal from the player, meaning they can copy your own class or racial features and use it themselves. So they can steal your tactics, they can copy your spells, but they can even copy your magic items. So imagine a goblin downs the cleric, they escape the fight, learn how your party works, and come back with pieces of your own bullshit turned against you. So now that random goblin who barely survived session 3 doesn't just come back with more HP. He comes back wearing the fighter's stolen armor, he uses the rogue sneak attack, and he resists the wizard's favorite spell because he adapted to it. And now he's talking crazy because he actually earned the right to be a problem. That is the Rising Rival system. It's a system where your players don't just fight villains, they accidentally create them. And who they are is completely shaped on what they steal. And, like the Nemesis system, what they do. So I'm not going to read the whole document word for word like I'm presenting a PowerPoint presentation in elementary school, because that would be insane. I'm just going to show you how the document works, what matters most, and what you should actually focus on if you want to use Rising Rivals and Ascending Allies in your own campaign. And the best part is you can implement it all tonight. Yes, tonight. I'm going to show you enough of the document on the screen so you can pause, screenshot, steal ideas, or whatever. But if you want the actual editable version so you don't have to Frankenstein this together from screenshots, that's on my Ko-Fi for members, links in the description. But this video is going to explain how to actually use it correctly. So how do you actually read this guide? So this section is important because I don't want anybody opening this document and thinking they have to read every single section before they can use it. You don't. If you only want to run the basic version, read the quick start and the core loop. That is enough. But if you want to build an entire campaign around it, then you're going to need to read the setup section that I have here. If you want the enemies to feel like a living faction though, then you're going to read the hierarchy, background actions, and spies section. But if you want your players to collect every friendly NPC like a Pokemon, aka you want them to actually care about NPC companions, read Ascending Allies and Hero Actions. But for those of you who want a big finale where all the spies, allies, and rival history come together, read the Siege section. The document is built in layers and you can add pieces when your campaign is ready for them. So don't try to run every single piece on session 1. Run your quest normally and do not force a rival into the game. Do not decide ahead of time that this goblin is definitely going to be the main villain now. Just run the encounter, then watch for heat from the table. Emotion, frustration, joy, anger, relief, fear, all of it. Did an enemy down a player and escape? They're a rival. Did they get spared? A potential rival. Did they humiliate the party? Maybe a potential rival there. Did the players start talking about them after the session? Absolutely, they are in fact a rival. Once that happens, you mark them down and you mark what happened, either in the moment or directly after the session. But do not forget, write down who they are and what happened, who they are connected to and why they care. And then give them 1 to 2 changes, not 12 changes, 2. A scar, like something that's visible, a title, a weakness, a resistance, a stolen tactic, hell, maybe even a follower or a rank. Just one thing that makes them feel different next time. Then let the world mention them through rumors, spies, prisoners, wanted posters, whatever. Then you have the Nemesis system in its basic form. But if you want the Rising Rival system, you're going to want to stick around. We got to break some stuff down so you actually know how to use it and know how to implement it into your games the right way. Now, who the hell is this guy? Okay, so my name is Sensei Suplex. I'm a professional dungeon master who plays 3 to 4 games of D&D a week, and I do this for a living. I run Dungeons and Dragons for a living. But I'm also a certified dumbass. A dumbass who's obsessed with putting video games and anime logic into D&D when the internet tells me not to. My job is to help you fall back in love with D&D by showing you different ways to engage with the game when everyone's bored of it. So, for example, I run Project Aurora, the MCU of Dungeons & Dragons, a giant MMO D&D server where there's 2,500 people in it, and over 150 active players in it during this season alone. A place where if Jimmy joins Aurora 8 years from now, he might be dealing with the consequences of what Timmy and his character did today. The point was to feel like an MMO and a GTA RP server had a baby using Dungeons & Dragons. It's a West Marshall style living world, multiple DMs, tons of players, raid bosses, players ran economies, text RP if that's your jam, faction wars, estate building, even events where you can play D&D for 12 hours straight with no scheduling issues or party drama. In there, we test systems like this Nemesis system in our world. And though the Nemesis system is only used in my game specifically, we got a lot of cool stuff for people looking to play, or hell, even run D&D in a new and unique way. But alright, enough yapping, let's talk about the document. Alright, building it into a campaign. So before you start using the mechanics, you need to answer several questions. Why does this system exist in your world? Why can enemies level up? Why can they return? Why can they copy abilities? Who or what is causing this? In my campaign, this is what I did. I used the Phoenix District. So basically, there is a Phoenix with revival powers, and that power could bring back people stronger after death. But the BBEG of the campaign was harnessing said power. Boom. Now I have a reason why enemies are coming back, a reason why they're changing, and a reason the villain cares in the first place. You don't need a 40-page lore answer. You just need enough of an answer that the players feel like the system belongs in the world. And this is where I think a lot of DMs stop themselves for no reason. They say, you know, would this work in my campaign? Wrong question. Don't do that. The better question is, how do I make this work in my campaign? Because one question makes you justify why it wouldn't work. The other question justifies how to make it work. Only one question gets you to actually implement it and making this long-ass video that you're watching worth it. So maybe it is a necromancer, maybe it is a cursed region, or maybe it's a dragon empowering kobolds, or maybe it's an alien force that adapts every time it dies. D&D is weird. I want to give you guys some examples. You can come up with any justification as long as you actually try to come up with one. But if you're starting a new campaign, this is a lot easier, y'all. Pick the enemy force or region, explain why rival growth exists, and decide whether enemies can return from death, whether they can copy abilities, or whether allies can grow, all that stuff. Then tell your players the basic idea at session 0. Don't just say, hey, we're using the Nemesis system and assume everyone knows what that means. They probably don't. Tell them enemies can become rivals, rivals can grow, and some might come back after death, but also allies can grow too. Their choices can create future enemies and allies. If you're already mid-campaign, you got really 2 options. You can either do option 1, you introduce a new force, so a new cult, a gang. This is the easiest route. Option 2, you convert an existing villain. This can work really well because the players already care about that enemy, but it also comes with that baggage. So if your villain doesn't naturally have followers or a hierarchy, you may need a group that worships them or serves them or something like that. Either way, the system can fit, you just need the right reason. So, running rivals, this is the main section. This is the enemy side of the system. So when an enemy becomes a rival, you don't need to just stop the game and start writing a novel about who they are and stuff like that. You only need the usable details. What I write down in my games is who did the rival knock unconscious, how the rival died or escaped, and who was the one who killed them or hated them the most. That is enough. When rivals level up, don't just make the numbers bigger. Yes, you can gain HP, yes, you can increase proficiency bonus, stats, and damage, whatever. But the most important upgrade is identity. The rival should be stronger, but they should also be more specific. So if the wizard burned them, maybe they come back with fireproof armor. Or maybe they're terrified of fire now. All of those are better than just, hey, they have 15 more HP now. But also at the same time, sometimes that's all you can adjust in the moment. So sometimes what you can do is you can just let the rival die there, because you know you're going to be able to come back, bring them back later, and then fully flesh them out later after the session. So give them 15 HP now with some small stat increases, and then prep them later. Because numbers matter, but identity is what makes the players actually remember them. So don't get too torn up about the number side, and don't worry about your rivals trying to escape. They're not supposed to escape, they're supposed to die. That's the point. Speaking of which, death is data. This might be the most important design idea in the whole guide. Let's talk about if they die for good, like they're not coming back anymore. You gotta make it matter. Maybe their faction reacts, or maybe a bodyguard swears revenge. You could have it where the lieutenant takes their rank. Or you can maybe have it where maybe it leaves behind a clue for the plot of your campaign. Hell, even in Shadow of War, sometimes when you kill one rival, it actually creates another rival because they were blood brothers or something like that. I hate that mechanic, but hey, you could use it in your game. And for those individuals who actually do come back from the dead, like you actually use resurrection in your system, which you should. My rule of thumb is that all rivals get one free resurrection. This is how you have your rivals escape. They don't. Sometimes they'll try to escape if they value their life. Other times they'll just try to kill as many people as possible before dying, becoming a freaking badass before eventually coming back to life that final time, and then truly becoming a raid boss. But all rivals get one free resurrection, and they must earn the second resurrection through heat. And they have to earn a lot of heat. Now, when I say heat, I'm kind of stealing a wrestling term, and hey, it's where the suplex part of Sensei Suplex comes from. Heat is when the crowd is actually reacting. They boo somebody, they hate them, they want to see them get punched in the freaking mouth. Like, they're emotionally invested. And in this system, heat means the same thing, but for D&D, heat is when something at the table gets a real reaction from the players. Here are some examples of an enemy getting a lot of heat. Maybe the party spares a bandit, and then that bandit comes back worse, and now the party regrets their decision, even though it worked out in the short term. Or maybe a random goblin talks crazy one time, and now the whole table wants him dead immediately. That is heat. Each of these have an emotional reaction. How they get there is kind of irrelevant, because heat means the table is telling you, hey, we care about this. See, stolen abilities are where things get really personal, and most of the heat from this system comes from. Typically, you copy abilities and player items, but you technically don't have to. It's just the thing that I recommend almost every time, unless your rival is getting too powerful and the table is spiraling into a TPK. So what I'm saying is, it means the rival instead takes something inspired by a player to make their own thing. So instead of the bandit taking the rogue's subclass feature, they may get embarrassed by the rogue and start using smoke bombs. A cultist survives a spell and returns with a weaker corrupted version out of pettiness. The point is that the player looks at the enemy and goes, wait, did that dude just learn that from me? This copycat asshole. That's the feeling you want. This section in this document goes further in depth, but I kind of covered it in the first and second video, so screenshot it or head to the Ko-Fi. This system isn't just for enemies. Allies can grow too, and honestly, this is one of the most important parts, because players will start naturally caring about NPCs who survive with them. Enemies, they rise through hatred, but allies, they rise through trust, but also usefulness. But here's a big thing that I don't cover in the document. They can't start out useful. That's the big thing. Many DMs screw this up when making a helpful NPC. A helpful NPC has to earn their usefulness. A lot of the time, that's how you wound up with horror stories of the DMPC just saved the day when we were getting our asses kicked. Now, allies can level up when they save a player, survive a major fight, take a risk, or get a meaningful kill. But my favorite way, my number one way, is that when the players naturally attach to them and they try to train said ally. That's when they become one. But allies, you gotta remember this, but allies should actually grow slower than rivals. Why? Because players protect allies. If the party likes an NPC, they're gonna heal them. They're gonna heal them, they're gonna guard them, they're gonna panic when they get hit, and they will literally throw themselves in front of death to protect them. So if allies level up too fast, they can become powerful too quickly, which is going to make them actually outshine your players. So have them level up slower. Fewer actions solve the problem whenever you have too many NPCs or too many allies. Because if you run this system long enough, your players may collect allies. Lots of them. And if every ally is on the battlefield with a full stat block, combat's going to become miserable very fast. So instead of giving every ally a full turn, you turn extra allies into hero actions. A hero action is like a helpful layer action from an NPC. They heal, they shoot, they reveal information, or they distract. That's it. You make it as simple as possible. You give them like 3 of those, and that's it. They're useful, but they're not taking a full turn and clogging up the fight. My recommendation is no more than 2 allies on the battlefield at once. Everybody else can become a hero action. That way, allies still matter, but combat doesn't become 45 minutes of NPCs playing the game while your players watch. Another rule that I actually mentioned in the 3rd video was that if there's typically 6 players in the party and 1 player misses, then I put an ally in. Like, let the players choose which ally they want. So now it's 5 players and 1 ally to form out the party of 6. And once the 6th person jumps back in, then the ally jumps right back out. Real quick, because by this point, you've basically seen how much is in here. I'm going to show a lot of this document on the screen. So generally, like, screenshot it, pause the video, steal the ideas, use it in your own game. I do not care. But if you want the actual editable document where you can reference it easier, change it, cut sections, rewrite rules, and make it fit your campaign without having to piece it together from screenshots like a conspiracy board, I put it on my Ko-Fi for members. The link is in the description. All right, now let's get into the optional advanced stuff, because this is where the system starts feeling way more like Shadow of War. So everything after this is optional. You don't need hierarchy, spies, background actions, and sieges on day 1. Start with the basic rivals and ally stuff first. Once that works, you can add the real Shadow of War feeling. Hierarchy management is what rivals do when the players are not around. They gain rank, they betray each other, and they form allies and recruit followers. They do stuff outside of the session. This is where a lot of the fun planning really comes from. I recommend 3 to 5 active rivals. You don't need to track 30 like Shadow of War. You are not PlayStation. 5 is enough. Between sessions, you give each active rival 1 action. They might challenge another rival, recruit bodyguards, or hunt an ally and study the party, whatever it may be. They take actions. You typically do this during your planning phase, or if you want to be lazy, you can kind of just do it while the players are role-playing and you're just doing this in the background. But this is what makes the world feel alive. The players are doing things, but the enemies are also doing things. But spies, that's where things get even better. Players can turn enemies into spies, or they can turn the existing allies into spies, and they can have them basically infiltrate the enemy's forces. But rivals can also plant spies near the players. A spy can reveal a weakness, sabotage a rival, betray the party, or get exposed to become a target for both sides. One very, very big important thing is that this works best if most of your rivals belong to one connected faction. Because if everyone comes from completely different factions, spies can still work, but it's very hard to track in my experience. Let's talk about sieges. So sieges are the big payoff. This is where the rival history, allies, spies, intel, and preparation, they all come together for the final big war. But here's the important part. The siege should not just be big combat. The fun is the actual build up to the siege. When you're using spies, when you're having NPCs betray them, when you're recruiting allies specifically because they're really good at exploiting that enemy's weakness. That's where all the fun comes in. When the fight actually happens, just use hero action so it doesn't become a nightmare on the NPC's turn. But if you really want to know how I make boss fights awesome, let me know if you want me to make a video where I use Witcher 3 and Monster Hunter to make the most badass freaking boss fights imaginable. Let me know in the comments below. Just type boss fights in the comments. So the optional mechanic I want to go over next is liking the damn video. Yeah, you thought I couldn't get away with a 3-peat, but call me Steph Curry because all I know is 3. All right, let's get back to the video. I'm done, y'all. At the end, I put all the actual tools from rival trackers, ally trackers, you name it, all of it. People were asking me about it. That's basically what I use. But that said, you don't need to include all of it, like every single bullet point. That's going to make it feel like homework. Just use what helps you and what you need to actually remember. This last part is the heart of the system. Just don't let this system become random math. The numbers exist to support the story, so don't get wrapped up in the numbers. I know a lot of people ask me to make this document so they can kind of get the numbers, but again, that's not the point of the system. The point of the system is to help create a better story that's actually memorable at your table. A rival level ups because something happened and the players actually care about it. So don't force rivals, that defeats the entire purpose. The best rivals are the ones that the table accidentally creates. The goblin that got away or the captain who just happened to survive. Focus on the story, not the mechanics. That's the magic. So again, if you want the editable guide, it's on Ko-Fi for members, linked in the description. So all in all, stop trying to force villains your players might care about. Instead, let players face off against the enemies they already hate because they were the ones who created them.